I'd now like to introduce our panel. And if the panel can, as I introduce them, sort of make their way over there. Whilst they're settling themselves down, I'll just also introduce you to a couple of new innovations for BrandZ that we're also launching today. So, first of all, I'd like to introduce RoZie Avalos from Intel Corporation, who is the Global Director for Visual Retail. RoZie, thanks very much indeed. Caleb Hill, who is Head of Amazon Media Group. Scott Allen, who is the CMO at Microsoft. John Watton, who is the Senior Director for Enterprise Marketing for EMEA at Adobe. And Rosalind Young, who is the Head of UK Advertising and Media at PayPal. Thanks very much indeed. Whilst you just settle in, I'll just introduce a couple of new innovations for BrandZ that you can all have a play with on BrandZ.com. So the first thing that if we could switch to the bot, the new bot which we launched today. It's available on BrandZ.com, and all you need to do is just type in what you want to know, and the bot will tell you about it. So this isn't automated. There's somebody in there who's actually typing. So we haven't quite got that far yet, but maybe next year. So first of all, let's look at the brand. So the brand that we look at is, let's say, who's the top brand for 2018? So I don't know if you can see it down there. So who's the... Okay, and there we are. There's the answer. Okay, let's look at who are the new entrants for 2018. And there we are. That's the table of new entrants. Let's have a look at Apple's brand value over time. Okay, and there is just drawn you the graph of Apple's brand value over time, and you can export that into your presentations, PowerPoints, etc. Let's do one more. Let's really test this too. What brand? Let's do Intel. Can we do Intel? Let's have a look at Intel over time. We haven't tested this one. There you are, RoZie. Not a bad few years. That's since you joined, I presume. You joined in 2014, and I can see you go up. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Now, Alexa has had a little bit of a bad rap from Doreen, or her son has given it a bad rap. So let's see if we can redeem Alexa, because we're also launching the BrandZ Alexa skill, and in particular, a new report that you'll be able to download called Celebrity Z. And Celebrity Z allows you all to understand the best relationship between a celebrity and a brand. So what's the best fit if you're thinking of, who should you use to endorse the brand? This is a great tool to use. So let's see if we can get Alexa to work. Alexa, launch BrandZ RoZie.
Hello, I'm BrandZ RoZie. Thanks for your interest. Can I ask your name?
David.
Nice to meet you, David. Would you like to talk about this year's BrandZ Top 100 Most Valuable Global Brands?
Let's chat about the famous film star, Margot Robbie.
The fabulous film star, Margot Robbie, was born on July 2nd, 1990 in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. What would you like to know?
How many movies has Margot appeared in?
Margot has been in 31 movies and TV shows, nominated for an Oscar, as well as winning 14 other awards and 56 other nominations.
What's Margot's secret talent?
Margot Robbie has given numerous people tattoos, including Cara Delevingne. "I've done almost 50 tattoos now," she told talk show host Jimmy Fallon.
Using our Celebrity Z data, how many followers does Margot have?
Margot has 14.4 million followers on Instagram, 1.1 million on Twitter and 1.6 million on Facebook.
And how popular is Margot?
Extremely popular. Margot has seen an average of 202,000 in new social followers each month across Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.
And who likes Margot?
57% of her audience is women, 43% is men. The majority of her audience ages between 25 to 34.
And who is the world's best chief operating officer?
That's an easy one. It's a dead heat between Mark Reed and Andrew Scott, our new joint chief operating officers. Is there anything else I can help you with?
I think we'll quit whilst we're ahead. Thanks very much indeed. Actually, I ought to turn you off because every time you talk about Alexa, we'll get...
Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Goodbye, thank you. Right. We've heard all sorts of buzzwords being talked about, you know, artificial intelligence, disruption, big data. Are they all buzzwords, or what value can those bring to brand builders today? As you drew the short straw next to me, let's go first.
I think it's important to sort of unpack what AI and all of this technology jargon is, and for PayPal certainly AI for us is, you know, sophisticated algorithms and being able to crunch a lot of data into usable ways. So for us, we use AI extensively, and with the one single goal in mind, which is to make better products for our customers that make it easier, safer, faster to pay and get paid. Perfect example of how we're using AI in product development is PayPal Working Capital, which is our business funding product. If you think back to the financial crisis a couple years ago, small businesses out of that financial crisis were really struggling to find ways of getting access to funding. Some new business models were developing, and it didn't really fit the traditional ways of being able to, you know, go to your bank branch and getting the funding that way. And what we did was we took the data that we have access to with our customers and developed a new product that they could apply for credit online. And that was a way for us to bring a new product to customers fast, easy, in a real digital era. We did some research last year looking at where the applications were coming from, and we noticed that there was a correlation between where bank branches were closing and where people were applying for PayPal Working Capital, which was really fascinating. And this year we looked at the hours that people were actually applying for credit. And we noticed that 70% of those applications were actually coming outside of banking hours. So really seeing a need there, using that data, really being able to find that gap in the market and serve our customers.
So in that way, the AI tools that you're creating and developing are being used to enhance the customer experience as opposed to the customer realizing that there's an AI background behind it.
Exactly. I think Doreen touched on it being a human brand, despite the fact that we are a digital brand. The human connection and being able to serve our customers and create that meaningful connection is still very important.
I mean, at Microsoft, you're investing huge sums of money in this whole territory.
Yep.
Do you see it as a human ploy or is it a technology ploy?
So I'm very big about the fact that if you use AI in the right way, it's going to save you time, it's absolutely going to make you more productive, and it will make you smarter at doing your marketing. However, if it's just AI, the machine on its own, without the human, I call it the interpreter, then you're never going to get the value out of it, because you'll have all this data, it will be served up, but there'll be nobody there that can actually humanize it and put the empathy behind it and give you meaningful data that you can then start making some decisions on. So having that human alongside the machine absolutely makes an important difference to how successful you can be. I think more importantly as well is that as marketeers, we need to stop thinking about technology being an add-on and have technology embedded into the strategy that we have. I talk a lot about I'd rather hire a couple of interpreters than go to 3 or 4 key events, because those interpreters are going to make us get more foresight so we can make better decisions on the marketing we do that should be more relevant on the back of it.
But in a company which I suppose is dominated by engineers, and I use that word in a nice sense of the word, especially as my father was an engineer. How difficult is it to get the engineers to understand that the technology is great, but only if it's useful innovation, and be able to channel innovation in a way that's useful to the consumer?
So first of all, you've got to be set up structurally in the right way. And as you say, we're a very engineering-led organisation, we have been. But what we've done over the last couple of years since Satya Nadella's come in is really think about how we bring our product groups together, how they work as one, so we're not working in a siloed way, and working alongside engineering. If you think about things like when we launched Windows 10, that was done with our users. So bringing your users, your fans along on the journey and letting them comment what they think is good and what they don't, the engineers then will take more notice that actually hearing how the user is going to use it is going to make it more effective rather than being buried in the labs developing it themselves. So we've got much better at using our own customers and our own fans to help shape the products that we've got. So from that perspective, the engineers and the product teams do work much more closely together.
And I'm intrigued at that because probably a number of people here in the audience have played with, in the nicest sense of the word, using consumers to help innovate. How difficult is it for an organisation like Microsoft, a massive organisation, to sort of lose control in a sense and use its customer base to help it innovate as opposed to innovation coming from the organisation?
So it's difficult. You've got to change your mindset, and we've been around 45 years plus. So therefore, we're needed to reinvent ourselves a bit because we are competing against teenagers or less now, less than 10 years old. And in order to compete with that competition that's out there, you have to do things differently. So culturally, we've changed that mind shift as well. So not easy to do, but in essence, if you want to stay around and be successful. And be relevant to the customers, you have to change, and that's exactly what we've done, and that's why you've seen us. We've been in the top 100 since the last 40 years, and we will continue to do so if we continue to innovate and we continue to think differently, but also where we don't forget the customer. Because if you're not relevant to the customer, you can have the best technology in the world; they're just not going to buy from you, and in the end, you'll disappear away.
We've seen a tremendous value increase in Adobe over the course of the last few years. How would you categorise Adobe, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, when we in the marketing community knew it as the providers of Photoshop, to where Adobe is today?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing transformation ourselves. And I think really, a bit like Microsoft and what Scott's talking about, it does come from, a management will to make change. So we spotted, or we understood, I guess, 10 years ago that we need to make a shift for us to be competitive in our space. And, look at where we've come from in being fundamentally a provider of box software on desktops for creative professionals to now front and center of really what's being talked about here, which is we firmly believe that, successful brands that will thrive and survive put experience at the heart of what they do. And it's all about, the customer experience and delivering amazing experiences. That's the difference. You see that in how, I behave with brands, how my kids behave with brands. We're very intolerant, the bar's very high, the cost of shifting is quite easy. And so, brands, we all have to compete very strongly. So, we saw this coming, and we've made a number of moves in terms of acquisitions and then our business model. So we moved our entire business into the cloud within 2 years. And I think we're the only...
And that was a very controversial move.
It was, and people in the audience, and, I was outside at the time, when we started doing that. It creates some challenges around the market because we moved from buying, relatively expensive boxes of software periodically for our consumers to being a subscription model. But I think it's all worked out fine in the end, and we're all friends now, right? So it's all good. But we had to do it. You look at the business now and where we are, poised for the future. Still in the top 100 or moving up the top 100. Our brand equity is very strong. Our market cap is very strong, and the value we deliver to our customers is completely different. So a lot of our business now is helping large brands build amazing experiences for their consumers, whether they're retailers or travel or entertainment businesses. And coming back to the artificial intelligence thing, we see this just as much as a key part in creativity as it is in automating transactions. And the way I think about it for my team is that, and Scott and I were talking about this earlier, I've got a lot of my team who, with the best will in the world, involved in very shallow work, which really, the question. I saw someone pose the question: could you pay an intern with 3 months to do that job? And if the answer is yes, you need to start automating that or getting your six-figure staff to do something else. And there's a lot of shallow work in marketing, and that's where AI comes in. So we're working hard on that in terms of automating everything from creative design and design iteration, and then just the slog of creating multiple different versions of artwork into all the formats across all the devices. That's just shallow work. You can automate all that through to actually automating the process of building a plan and so on. And I think that's how we should think about it. I want my team focused on deep work, that added value, deep set of activities that deliver value for my business rather than the shallow work. And I think that's where artificial intelligence comes in. And then to the consumer, I think we've got to get technology out of the way. They shouldn't know, to your question, that this is an AI fuel thing. It's just working seamlessly to deliver an amazing experience. They don't need to have some flag to say it's powered by some bot or something. They can just get on and do what they need to do, which is their banking or buying a product or connecting with their friends, whatever it is, and the AI kind of is very transparent in the background.
I was at a conference recently, and there was a artificial intelligence expert professor speaking, and he looked at the audience, which was jammed full. I mean, there wasn't a seat or standing. I mean, literally was standing room only. And he said, this is amazing for me because I've been an artificial intelligence professor for 15 years, and up until the last 2 years, I used to come to conferences, and if there were 3 people there, I'd consider that a major achievement. But the corollary, he said, was that the likes of, and I mean, again, this is a nice sense of the word, of Amazon are coming to all these universities and literally buying up the entire faculty and moving them into Amazon. You're putting a huge amount of investment, not you personally, but Jeff Bezos is putting a huge amount of investment into artificial intelligence in one form or another. Where's that going to? What in a vision of where Amazon's likely to be in the future? What role does it play, and what will it do that is currently done by humans at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think to echo what everyone's been saying, I think it's really the foundational technology for everything that we do. I mean, from Alexa, constantly, parsing through the signals it receives on the cloud and creating new behaviors or functionality or abilities, to the recommendation engine and our e-commerce site, to even the stuff that you don't see or notice but makes a big difference, like how our fulfillment centers run, right? That's more and more being powered by AI. How our entire supply chain operates. Like these are our core things that, yes, they make a big difference to our bottom line because we are able to eliminate inefficiency from that, but also creates consumer benefit in that you get your packages faster. Maybe you have less material in the packaging. There's lots of different things that I think, to everyone's point, like there's a business element that AI provides, but there's also always a human element to it. And I think as long as you're not gimmicky with it, like creating something flashing on that's disruptive or it's not natural, I think that it has it'll be part of our business forever, and I think it'll be part of most brands and businesses forever.
Jose, you're at Intel at the forefront of, I suppose, anticipating what where the innovation is going. I think I'm right in saying that when you create a new fabrication plant and you start to build it, you have absolutely no idea what's actually going to be produced in it because of the innovation, the cycle. We've seen a lot of brands ride the innovation wave. Have we come to the end of innovation? Moore's Law, has it got any more roads to run?
No, we're just getting started, David.
That's scary.
I mean, well, first of all, let me ask the previous. Let me talk a little bit about the previous comment that you made about why now. The comment that you made about the professor that 15 years ago he had 3 people attend his artificial intelligence class, and now everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. Here's why now. We did a study last year to look at the cost of compute, the cost of bandwidth, and the cost of sensors over the last 10 years. The cost of compute has dropped 60 times. Not 60%, 60 times. The cost of bandwidth has dropped 40 times. And the cost of sensors has dropped in half. So why now? Because now we're able to build this amazing, affordable solutions end-to-end that allow us to do these incredible things like computer vision, artificial intelligence, and analytics. So when I put it in perspective to your specific question, are we at the end of innovation? No, we're at the beginning. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of the Internet of Things, today, I think that we're in the early phase. We're in the first phase, right? The last few years we have focused on making devices intelligent and getting them connected. So what's next? The next thing is not only to have them be connected and be intelligent, but to also be autonomous, right? So how does a device becomes autonomous? They have to be able to see the world. So you need computer vision for machines to be able to see the world. Now they need to be able to analyze it, right? So there's going to be a lot of data. So you need the analytics to analyze all the data to turn it into actionable business insights that a human can actually take action, right? Otherwise, the technology for technology's sake doesn't do anything. And then you need the artificial intelligence for the machine to continue to learn so that every day the machine can be more efficient in the job that it's doing, right? Now, why is all this important, right? Going back to the emotional intelligence that the brand needs to create with the consumer is that today consumers not only want to have a dialogue with brands, they actually want to shape the brand. Right? So how does a brand respond to that, right? If a brand can collect analytics and better understand its customers, understand the customer likes, the customer's desires, then they can build products that create this emotional intelligence, this emotional attachment to the brand, because those brands are actually serving the needs of the consumer.
Now, I know, Jose, you travel in China a lot, and we've seen an amazing growth over the course of the 12, 13 years we've been looking at the top 100 brands. I think year 1 we had 1 Chinese brand in the top 100, and you see now Tencent is in the top 5, and 2 Chinese brands in the top 10. How important, when you knock on a customer's door in China, how important is the brand, Intel, in that relationship?
The brand of Intel in China is really valuable. And this is a really timely question, David. Just earlier this month, the China Reputation Institute named Intel the most reputable company in China. That's out of 29,500 brands. So we're extremely honored and humbled to be named the most reputable company in China. And we will continue to set a very high standard for the work that we do there. They specifically name product leadership and the ability to trust the quality of the brand. So the brand is extremely valuable. And not only in developed economies like China, also in developing economies. We talked about how for the first time we have a brand from Indonesia, right? When my team in visual retail first started doing business in Southeast Asia about 5 years ago, I assumed that most of the product we're going to sell there was going to be entry-level product. But today, the majority of the product mix that we sell into Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia is premium product. So people really value the brand. They trust the quality of the brand. So the brand is very valuable, not only in developed markets, but also in developing markets, David.
You all operate in China in one form or another. Is China a great opportunity or a great threat?
I'd say a massive opportunity. massive opportunity. I mean, the size and scale of the market, of course. But what we find really exciting is the Chinese consumer. They're incredibly mobile savvy, incredibly mobile savvy. And when you think about, we did a piece of research last year with Google, looking at sort of how Western companies are competing against Chinese brands. And one of the key things that is a huge area of opportunity that we hope will grow more in the UK and Europe is around social commerce. So the ability to buy something at the point of discovery. 31% of people in China have bought something through WeChat, and that is just at its infancy in the UK. So for us, that's quite a massive area of opportunity.
I think to add to that, if you think about the top 100 brands for China, 685 billion is their value. They're obviously doing something right. So I think it's stuff we can learn from the Chinese companies as well, not just us going into China, but when they start to come in.
And what do you think we can learn from them?
I think
it's a great point.
If you take someone like, and we're trying to do it with Microsoft and what we do around fans, we take someone like Xiaomi, they're very good at putting that fan at the centre of what they do. And even so down to the fact that now the fans are essentially doing the marketing for them, even running free events for them. And they've also learned that actually getting online and really getting into the forums and listening is much better than any market research you can ever do. So that bit about if you want to learn about how you take the fans along and how you can learn from them and make sure you've got products that affiliate with them and therefore get brand value, they're doing a very, very good job at that. And we do a lot of that around Xbox. And I think there's stuff there's a nice coming together of some great stuff that are being done by the US companies and by the Chinese companies. I think there's a lot that can be learned on both sides for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of questions. I mean, I think still the brands on your top 100 are those that are very relevant to their consumers and understand the consumer implicitly, and get really those kind of core needs, values, and then can build that connection. And I think the challenge for Chinese brands is how many of those are operating in multiple different markets and able to bring that relevance to a global scale. They've obviously got a very large domestic market, which is interesting for us all in itself. It far outstrips anything we can do anywhere else, right? So, but it's getting it's coming outside of that that market. I mean, a lot of the in your top 10, the 9 American brands are global. They operate in multiple different countries. The rest of the Chinese brands, I don't know how many are broken out. Outside there's a handful. So that's still the big question for them. But I don't think it's about America or China to that extent. It's that relevance and that personalization and getting a core truth about the brand and delivering that at scale. And so I think what Chinese brands are good at within the domestic market is delivering that phenomenal scale. Scary scale compared to a lot of what we do. And I know partnerships was up on the screen. Actually, funny enough, next to Scott, the way we tackle that is through partnership with Microsoft. We see that as a very strong way for us to enter that market. Because we're still feeling out that market, understanding how we can best capitalize that market. So we feel the best way to break into that is through strong partnerships with the likes of Microsoft and others.
Talking about partnerships, the other side of partnerships, and I suppose PayPal have experienced that, is when you are a pioneer and you enter a marketplace that has established, deep-rooted competitors, you suddenly make enemies very, very fast. Do you come out at the end of that and suddenly become friends, or what's the balance?
I think we're all friends now. I think we're very firmly in the friendship category now. I think what unifies all brands in the fintech space is sort of this common enemy, which is cash, right? So let's remove the friction. Let's get people paying each other and for things faster, safer, simply. And that's sort of the common goal. And I think that has encouraged us down the route of partnering and discovering new ways of delivering value and benefit to customers. And you see regulation and governments encouraging that too. PSD2 is a perfect example of really encouraging banks and fintech companies to work in collaboration. So I think absolutely a shared enemy is one, and two is really being able to tap into the strengths of each individual partner. So, we launched a partnership just last month. We announced a partnership with Barclays Bank. one of the oldest banks in the UK, you know, a perceived competitor historically. But one of the important things was they've been on the forefront of sort of digital innovation. We've been on the forefront of mobile. You put the two together, and hopefully beautiful things will happen. So we're really excited about partnering and being friends now, rather than perceived enemies.
How does Amazon feel about partnering?
Absolutely, open to it. We
Really? Really?
Yeah, it's not like you know, we zoom around and put targets on somebody and we go after it. I think it's, you know, our North Star is the customer, and we want to do stuff that either drives selection, convenience, or better pricing, and we orient all of our efforts towards those goals, right? If that disrupts an industry, that means that it's going to happen eventually. That's what customers want. It's what they desire, and so we want to be there. If you know, look at, we've done deals with Morrison's. We've obviously now working with Whole Foods very closely. There's definitely an online-offline element that we operate in. If you look in the States, our cloud business runs Netflix, which is the largest streaming provider in the world. And we also compete, though, with them in our own original content, right? So, in this world and all these technologies, you have to remain objective and sort of keep your eye on the long-term value of customers. And I think that enables us all to work together.
I would agree with that. I think there is obviously competition out there, and that's healthy because we carry on innovating. But there is going to be times where actually the competition, you want to work with them. So we talk a lot about voice-enabled. It's going to be really critical moving forward. The consumer, we have a platform called Cortana, but we're also talking about how we will work with Alexa as well, and think about iOS and Android. We've got Office working on iOS and Android that we wouldn't have done maybe 5 years ago. So I do think there are sometimes an opportunity for the competition to work with each other.
And is that because organisations are really understanding the fact that actually the thing that needs to be the centre of the organisation is the customer and what the customer wants, as opposed to what the organisation wants to pump down to the customer?
I do truly believe in that within Microsoft. I think about where Satya has taken us over the last 4 years or so. It's been all about customer obsession. And look at our mission statement. It's empowering individuals and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. That says it all, that we are the facilitator for helping individuals and organisations to achieve more. Back to the AI question, AI is going to be great for the consumer, but also we're doing some wonderful things in healthcare. There's a brilliant story we've got where we're doing stuff with Great Ormond Street about how AI is helping them around analysing for treatments, how to educate children that are unfortunately in hospital for long periods of time with them, and make sure that they're learning using our technology. So there's some really good stories about how the technology helps a human when they're in times of trouble, as much as it helps you know, deliver your shopping or whatever else it might be.
We heard a lot about partnerships for Endura, and we talked about it here. If you were sort of creating a dream team of brands to put together something sort of really differential and disruptive, so not necessarily in your business, a bit like sort of a fantasy football team, which combination of brands would you pull together and why? Yeah, go on. Go for it. Yeah.
So I come from an age, so I'll start with music at the core. So I come from a time where it used to cost me £15 to buy 10 tracks, and now it costs £9 to get me 40 million tracks a month. And still people don't want to pay for Spotify, so I don't get it. Anyway, and if I was really good, I got out 100 tracks a year, you know, if I had saved all my money. Now I've got 40 million. So I just think the disruption of Spotify, continuing music theme, I love the design of Sonos. So I was a fairly early adopter when it was a little cranky about 12 years ago. So I've been with them for a long ride, but I love the design and simplicity of Sonos. I think the purpose of Tesla, just, you know, amazing purpose and vision they have, the kind of, you know, just the desire of the company to do great things. And then probably, you know, the convenience, I'm not just saying this because of Amazon, just, you know, the crack that in terms of the convenience for the consumer. So that would probably be my dream team. What that company would be, I don't know.
Great, nice one.
Playlists on rockets.
Okay.
With shopping within 2 hours. There you go.
Yeah, I think that one area where I'd love to see some innovation, and maybe you take like a Unilever, some JP Morgan, someone who gives the capital, and then maybe one of the big healthcare companies. I'm thinking of the U.S. or come up with something that that's again it's very top of mind for customers, but a way also I think to lift everyone's brand equity. Something green, where we eliminate plastics, for example, or we somehow change the customer behavior. I'd love to see something where capital, retail, and some new tech, I don't know what it would be, would come together. In the US, we saw Amazon strike a partnership, and I don't know where we are today with it, to be honest, but with the top healthcare provider and with JP Morgan to do something to revolutionize kind of how healthcare might work in the States. But those sort of, I think that companies that are leaning forward and looking at where consumer sentiment is, where stuff really, if you want to be loved, and we go back to your presentation, like environment is it's a no-brainer, right? Everyone likes clean water and air. I think that's where we should be seeing some interesting partnerships.
Jose?
Well, I think the world is so complex and our problems are so complex that we really have to work together across the board. If you look at, for example, feeding the hungry, right? A lot of people in the world think that we don't make enough food to feed everybody. The actual truth is that we make more food than we need, right? But every day, millions of people go hungry every night. And so you have challenges of production. And, in some of the developed countries, you can use Internet of Things technology to increase production. For example, we work with the Malaysian government to increase their yield of rice by 50% a year, right? With Internet of Things technology. At the same time, you need efficient distribution channels. So working with somebody like Amazon on distribution channels to make sure that we don't waste so much food. Today, we waste about 1/3 of the food that we produce every day. So the world is so complex and the problems are so complex that really, you can't really think about the ecosystem as enemies and friends anymore. You look at the problem that needs to be solved and you apply the best technology to provide the best value to the consumer. And so you really got to be able to work with all these brands. None of the brands here on stage can run their cloud without Intel, right? So we all have to work together, right?
Well,
we all have to work together.
I'm not certain, the way in which you phrase it, I'm not certain it's all working together.
I think most of you know that 98% of the cloud runs on Intel compute.
Not anymore.
Well, it's a very good commercial. RoZie, what do you reckon? Who's your dream team?
Oh, my dream team. I think along the same vein as Jose and what Caleb was saying, putting business forward for good. So, combining forces and using our shared might to actually change the world. I think any brand can have that opportunity. But again, it's about finding the right pockets to really be able to make that difference. I think that would be my dream team if I could.
If only there was a media company that could help us put it all together.
I shall speak to Mark Reed and Andrew Scott immediately. Yeah.
So I fully agree with that. I think if I went a bit more simplistic, anything that could save me a lot of time currently with customer service would help. So I think a nice bringing together of where most of my disposable income goes, especially with my kids, of John Lewis, Waitrose, Sky, probably SSE and Amex. Bring all them together, and then you'd have the best online experience, the best customer service, the best products, and I would save myself hours and hours.
I like that. I think I'd shop there as well. Only 2 brands in 2006, as Doreen showed us, were in the top 10 in 2018. Out of the top 10 today, which ones would you take a bet on remaining in 5-10 years' time?
I'll start. Microsoft.
Yeah. Well, you've had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
You've done it, actually.
Yeah, I think
next
Amazon, okay, good. Jose?
Well, I think you need to continue to innovate, right? You need to continue to transform yourself. And to a large extent, one of the things that we do at Intel is we always try to disrupt ourselves. Instead of, it's a lot less painful to disrupt yourself than to have somebody else disrupt you. So we always look.
Well, I think it was your chief executive or chairman who wrote that wonderful book, Only the Paranoid Survive.
Yes. And so we always looking at innovation. We're always looking at how do we disrupt ourselves and stay ahead of the innovation curve. So I think the brands that continue to innovate, The brands that can bridge the gap, that technology gap to the emotional attachment, with the consumer, will do well. So I think the technologies that I mentioned are really critical. The computer vision, to be able to see the world, the analytics, to be able to turn that data into actionable insights that actually impact the consumer, and the artificial intelligence to continue to learn and do the job better or more efficiently every day. Those are really key technologies. So
just on that, I'm just going to be from all of you. Do you all see computer vision as being, I suppose, the next inflection point, if we haven't reached it already, in the technology market, to be able to really deliver very new and different things to consumers? Because computers have done everything but see. Now if they can see.
Well, I think we're only just scratching the surface of everything else, right? So, when we talk to brands and marketers, only about 20% really feel they're using AI to drive their business, but most intend to do something. So I think, next couple of years we'll see it kind of go mainstream. I think, the theory is there, but the practice isn't quite there at scale across a lot of the brands that you see up on the screen there. I mean, there are lots of research and development brands who are using it very successfully, and NGOs and government, but I think it hasn't really hit the mainstream. So I think there's a lot to go on that side of things, before we get to vision. But there's no doubt, it's the senses that are needed in most interesting applications, whether it's driverless cars or unsupervised farming or whatever it may be. But I really don't believe we've scratched the surface of the other senses yet.
Yeah. I think to add to that is, we talk about technologies if it's only the big companies that can use it and can afford it. We're doing some of our best things with SMBs at the moment. County councils, small 5-man organisations, and they are the ones that are adopting AI and using it in a really powerful way. And that's because it's not expensive to do it now. You've almost got to have the vision of where you want your company to use it in the right way, and not use it for the sake of using it.
That's a really interesting point, because in a lot of new industries, they're very fragmented, right? And fragmentation for big companies like ourselves poses a big problem, because it's very difficult to address your customers when you got thousands of customers, right? But one of the big benefits of fragmentation is that you get a lot of localized innovation, right? So in some of these new industries, you've seen a lot of localized innovation. And that's good for all of us. But going back to your point about computer vision, David, even if you look at WPP business in retail, wouldn't it be great if you can tell a brand, this many people walked in the door, this many people actually looked at the advertising, this is how long they looked at the advertising, here's the demographics for the people that looked at the advertising, here's the people that actually purchased the product, and here's the demographics for the people that purchased the product. Basically, deterministic attribution in advertising. Computer vision is a key ingredient to solving that challenge that we have today in advertising. So I really see that computer vision has a tremendous potential to help us solve a lot of problems. And not just in retail, in a lot of other industries.
Yeah. There's enough smart people in the world that can make it happen, for sure.
We talked a little bit about the bundle of Chinese brands who are tech brands who are going fast. The fearsome 5, or the friendly 5, depending on how you want to say, the terminology of those in the UK outside of China, of which clearly Amazon is one. I always, when I go through the team with when they've just done all the analysis on the results, and I always wonder, is this the year that Amazon is going to be the #1 brand? Clearly not this year, but it's definitely edging up that way. So a slightly frivolous but nonetheless important question: is Amazon trying to take over the world?
Is this where I do my Dr. Evil? Yeah, like I said, before, we tend not to think that way. Like, let's go capture all this share in this one industry or not. I mean, I think it's around, again, the three core principles we build all of our products around are convenience, selection, and price, right? And if that leads us into healthcare next, or if it leads us into, I don't know, insurance, then sure, we'll go there if that's what our customers want. But it's never about, let's topple everybody. And in fact, I would say that in my time at Amazon, approaching 5 years, rarely have I heard in a meeting, hey, what are we doing about the Google problem? Or what are we doing about, Microsoft or somebody else? It's always about the customer. And if you go to any meeting in Amazon, there's always one empty seat at a table in every conference room, and that's the sort of the symbol of the customer who's at the table to remind us why we're there, why we're discussing a certain problem. It sounds maybe a little funny, but that's sort of how we think about it. The great thing about being at a big innovative company like we are is that anything's possible, but I think world domination is not one of those things.
We shouldn't worry too much about that. Okay. Finally, when you leave, you're going to be given two things. One of them is the report, which I hope you'll read. It's an amazing analysis of where consumers are, where the brands are, and some great thought leadership by our WPP colleagues around the world. You'll also be given a book, which we're launching today, called Brand Builders. And we've asked a variety of people which brands have an emotional relationship with them, the story behind those brands and why. And there's some really interesting stories. It makes you really think that good brand building stays inside your mind forever. It never leaves. Finally, we'll just go around quickly. Which brands have that emotional connection with you and why?
For me, it's Lego. So I remember hours of block building as a child, and now that I'm a parent, it's the one toy that I have zero guilt buying my son, because I feel like I'm doing him some good by giving him a pile of Lego. And I love that their turnaround story. If you think back to 2003, they were on the brink of their own financial crisis. By 2015, they were #1 in their category in Europe and Asia again. So real turnaround. And I love that every interaction with that brand, whether it's an ad or in store, actually playing with the toy itself, it incites creativity, it incites imagination, and it's a universal experience. Like, you can go to kids in Asia, in Europe, and in North America, and everyone knows that experience of playing with those blocks, and I think it's brilliant. It's just very powerful.
A really interesting point. I don't know if I'm lucky. I get to travel around the world a lot, and the sound of children playing in playgrounds and schools around the world is exactly the same. Every country you go to, it's quite extraordinary. Anyway.
For me, easy. John Lewis. Just the time I've spent in John Lewis stores as a kid. Christmas, I'm a massive fan of Christmas. Just everything reminds me of my childhood, but also with 3 young kids myself, when Christmas comes, we actually enjoy going and having an experience in the store. And it is experiential when you go there, definitely to the store. So 100% John Lewis for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about big brands. I mean, I actually love brands that focus on doing one thing well. I think that's a real powerful thing right now. I have about, half a dozen pairs of jeans from a brand in West Wales. I'm actually Welsh, and I love a great story, right? I'm a sucker. My wife's like,
me too.
You're marketing, you should know that. I know, I love a story.
I think that's marketing.
Tell me a story.
We fall for it every time.
Oh, no, okay, I'll buy it. I love the story.
We also fall for 25% off as well, don't we?
So I love being marketed too. But there's a called Hyatt Denim in West Wales who basically, in Cardiganshire, it was a central production for big brands. They pulled out, and so basically, a group of entrepreneurs have kind of reopened the factories and provided employment, and it's just a great story. And they have a philosophy around management and culture and doing one thing well, and they run a conference on doing one thing well. So they're kind of thinking bigger than just making jeans. The only downside to this is last week I found out that Meghan Markle loves this brand as well, and you can't get them now for 6 months. But anyway, until then, I was very much in love with that brand.
For me, so I grew up in a household that didn't drink tea or coffee, so Coca-Cola was the main staple in the house. It was when we woke up, lunch.
How many times did you go to the dentist?
I mean, I'm American, so it's like, sugary drinks are all what we did. And in fact, like I think of Christmas. When you brought up Christmas, I thought about Christmas, and Coca-Cola for me was Christmas. It was so integrated in, and the fact what we think of Santa Claus, and I didn't know this as a little person, but now as an adult, I know that Coca-Cola crafted that Santa Claus. So, I mean, what a big brand! Like it's hugely impactful in my growing up.
I was saying you can't say Intel, okay?
No, I can't say Intel, but actually, I really like the brands that make me feel like a kid. And we talked a lot about Lego, so I talked about a different one. And it's FIFA. Even though the organization has had a lot of difficulties in the recent past, they put an amazing product. The World Cup, it's an amazing product, and for me, it's an amazing product because it makes me feel like a kid. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be going to Russia. This will be my 8th World Cup that I'm attending, obviously as a fan. Yeah, you know, the tournament makes me feel like a kid. It's an amazing experience, and it's similar to Lego. Lego is a great brand because it just brings that back to you. It makes you feel like a kid.
Well, I remember it must have been about 10 when I realised that I had more chance of owning a football club than playing for a football club. So. Well, Caleb, Jose, Rosalind, Scott, and John, thank you very much indeed. It's been wonderful. I'd love to carry on, but the Grim Reaper of time has paid us a visit. For the moment, thanks very much indeed.